What's up, everybody? Welcome back, and thank you once again for tuning in. A lot of action took place this past Saturday between Carson, California and Las Vegas, Nevada. Two marquee fights, headlining events, and with fairly good supporting cards. We did the last two episodes were the preview episodes leading to the Devin Haney versus Jorge Linares lightweight matchup, and the Nonito Donaire trying to make history in his bantamweight fight against champion Nonito Oubaali. So let's recap. There was a lot of stuff that took place this past weekend. Let's recap. Let's head back to Saturday night at Carson, California, as they had Nonito Donaire and Nonito Oubaali had two. They had obviously a full card of matchups in Carson, but there was three matchups that I was paying attention to. Of course, the main event and two others. The first one was in the super lightweight or junior welterweight division at 140 pounds. That was between Gary Antoine Russell. And that Gary Antoine Russell stepped in at 13-0, perfect record to date against none other than Giovanni Santiago. Now, Giovanni Santiago doesn't have that big household name, that big household notoriety, but he's best known for his last outing where he moved up to welterweight to fight Adrian Broner. He goes to welterweight, gives Adrian Broner everything Adrian Broner could handle. Of course, Adrian Broner had been out since December of 20, and he ends up fighting Adrian Broner at the beginning of this year, in February of this year. Adrian Broner trying to stay active, and that fight in itself was one that was a you pick 'em type fight at the end, because Adrian Broner had a mixed reaction, the crowd giving a mixed reaction when the decision was given to Adrian Broner. A lot of people thought Giovanni Santiago did enough to have pulled out that victory. He actually was deducted a point at one point for hitting after the bell during the fight. The fight was actually close. The cards didn't reflect that. The judges were actually fairly one-sided for Adrian Broner, I think Adrian Broner won that fight against Giovanni Santiago by no less than 4 rounds, 3 to 4 rounds, and as much as by 6 rounds, I think, 6 or 7 rounds in a landslide by one of the judges. Giovanni Santiago performed a lot better than what the scorecards reflected, than what the judges gave him credit for, and he very well could have pulled that fight out. And if you would have given it to Giovanni Santiago, a lot of people wouldn't have been upset. Good Puerto Rican fighter, solid base. He stepped in this time at 140 pounds against Gary Antoine Russell, and gave a good showing. Gave a good showing against Gary Antoine Russell, at least for the first few rounds. By the 4th round, Russell drops Santiago in hard fashion. Santiago gets up and continues on. Russell was just too much, was a step ahead of Giovanni Santiago, and eventually the fight is stopped in the 6th round. This fight was scheduled for 10 rounds. Gary Antoine Russell comes out the victor, remains undefeated, and moves on to a 14-0 unblemished record, where Giovanni Santiago gets his the second defeat of his career. The first, of course, coming at the hands of Adrian Broner. From there, we moved on to the next bout. Subriel Matias, also at 140 pounds. Subriel Matias stepped into the ring with a 16-1 record against Batirzan Jukembayev, who was a perfect unblemished record as he stepped into the ring, 18-0. This was a firefight. It was back and forth, a lot of action, good boxing on both ends, a lot of power punches thrown between the two. Jukembayev was down in round 4. Jukembayev, the corner ends up stopping the bout after round 8. And it was ruled a knockout win. So back-to-back stoppages. The Santiago fight was stopped after round 6. This one was stopped after round 8. It was a firefight, and Subriel Matias is going to give anybody headaches. He improves to 17-1, gives the first loss to Jukembayev. wow, I mean, the sky's the limit for Subriel Matias. He's going to give anybody headaches. He's going to give anybody headaches in the 140-pound division. And I can't wait to see him again. The guy is just fireworks to watch. We move on to the main event. This was one that I was pulling for. I was a little more biased for one side over the other, and that was for Nonito Donaire. I was pulling for him. I'm a sucker for history, boxing history. I'm a sucker for the underdog, and in this case, the underdog happened to be the legendary Nonito Donaire. Nonito Donaire walking into this fight at 38 years of age. He stepped into the fight with a record of 40-6 as the challenger to Nordine Oubaali's WBC Bantamweight Title. Nordine Oubaali stepping in with 17-0, perfect unblemished record, high knockout ratio, high power, high volume punching from Nordine Oubaali. And as I was breaking down the fight on the preview episode, the way that I saw the fight playing out was if Nordine Oubaali established the pace and took the pace in his favor from the beginning, pressing the action, taking the action to Nonito Donaire. Most of the success that Nordine Oubaali to date has found has been by pressing his opponents, pushing forward, pressing his opponents towards the ropes, and then he starts unleashing the power punches. The big issue here was going to be the height and the reach that favored Nonito Donaire. Nonito Donaire needed to keep the fight in the center of the ring, and the opening bell rings. You get power punching from Nordine Oubaali, who quickly began to establish his power and his dominance, and begin to have some success by lunging forward, throwing some good hooks and some good straight jabs to Nonito Donaire and landing at that. But Nonito Donaire began to find his pace. He set the pace from the beginning. He set the rhythm. He began to box in the center of the ring. And all of a sudden, by round 2, you start seeing Nonito Donaire pressing the action forward, initiating the contact, or at least baiting Nordine Oubaali to swing so Nonito could counter, and countering by way of his strong left hook. He still has a lot of power. The Filipino Flash has a lot of power, and it's a quick, piston-like hook that he still has, that he still possesses. And he landed it over and over and over. And he began to take control of the rhythm to where Nordine Oubaali began to hesitate a little bit as far as generating his attack by way of just power. So he began to box. It was pretty evident that Nonito Donaire ended up figuring out the rhythm of the fight and the pattern in which Oubaali was attacking. Nonito continued to push the action towards the ropes, which is something that has, for the entire career of Oubaali, that's where he's found his success. Getting his opponents against the ropes so he could land his power punches. This time he was on his back foot, and he finds his back against the ropes. Nonito Donaire sneaking the left hook. By the third round, he drops Oubaali twice, and nasty at that. Nasty drops. Oubaali goes down. He barely answers the second time that he goes down. The corner is panicking. He sits there. They're trying to get him up, but he's not gathering his composure as quickly as the corner may have wanted to, maybe as quickly as Oubaali may have wanted to. These punches were just catching him off guard, on the button, by way of, or compliments of, the left hook that Nonito Donaire still possesses. Speed is still there. His instincts, his reflexes are still there. And the left hook, the power of that left hook is ever so present. He dropped Oubaali nasty on both occasions. The second one being even more of a staple, cementing the power with that second one, surprising to the audience, to the crowd surprise, to the commentator surprise, to the fan surprise. Oubaali actually answered it, got up, goes to the corner, and then he has to answer the bell. He does. He answers the bell for the fourth round, and they begin to go back and forth. They dance around a little bit. And Nonito Donaire starts pressing the action as they exchange punches towards the center of the ring. Oubaali ends up taking the worst of that exchange, backpedaling towards the ropes, to where Nonito Donaire again establishes the exchange, takes control of the exchange, and counters beautifully with the left and cements the drop with the right. He sneaks that right punch in there, connects on the button, and he leaves Nordine Oubaali just mangled on the ground. I mean, just it looked like he was lifeless for a few seconds. He looked like a puppet. Just landed, legs spread apart, head looking down. The referee immediately steps in, waves the fight off, and we have a new WBC Bantamweight Champion of the world and the oldest Bantamweight champion in boxing history at that. Nonito Donaire makes history again. Something about Carson, California. That used to be the Home Depot Center, and it's produced some high fireworks style fights in years past. Then it became the StubHub Center and now the Dignity Health Sports Park. Regardless of what it is, there's something about that atmosphere that arena, that venue in Carson, California just brings out the animal in these fighters, and you see fireworks. You're bound to see fireworks. That's also the venue that hosted those famous fights between Rafa Marquez and El Magnifico, Israel Vasquez. Those were amazing fights. I actually had a chance to be at that venue years ago and witness a fight between De La Hoya and Steve Forbes. And it's an awesome arena. It's a cool venue. If you ever get a chance to go check it out, go check out a game there. It was famous, of course, for hosting the Los Angeles Galaxy, and then they started hosting fights. And I think one of the biggest events that they hosted there, one of the initial big events that they hosted there, was the De La Hoya Steve Forbes fight. And then from there, it carried on a life of its own. And you've seen some amazing fights in years past since then. So this was an awesome fight. Fireworks from the beginning. The intensity was there. The nerves was there from both fighters. They were both just on top of their games. And Nonito Donaire, just a step ahead of Nordine Oubaali, figures him out, figures a puzzle that is Nordine Oubaali and his power, and lands his power. Is able to outsmart and outpoint Nordine Oubaali, and ends up unleashing his power. Compliments of the left hook, stopping Nordine Oubaali by 4th round knockout. Drops him 3 times, the 3rd one being the final nail in the coffin. Congratulations, Nonito Donaire. I was beyond happy that he pulled it out. I didn't see the fight going this way at all. If anything, I thought it was going to drag on into the later rounds. I'm just glad that he was able to make history. Nonito Donaire still looks good. And now, just look at the division. Naoya Inoue, whom Nonito Donaire had a fight of the year in 2019. Guillermo Rigondeaux, who Nonito Donaire has a loss to. That's another one of the champions there. And John Riel Casimero, who is another one of the champions there and scheduled to fight Guillermo Rigondeaux. Just those 4 names alone, just think about that. That division, as far as champions are concerned, is stacked. And there's no shortage of competition and challengers in that division. So it's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. It's going to develop awesome. It'll be a great story if we get to see Nonito step in there against Guillermo Rigondeaux years after, both of them on the latter stages of their career. If he gets to run it back against Naoya Inoue, that would be awesome, and possibly another fight of the year candidate, or maybe a fight of the year itself again, or he fights John Riel Casimero. If Casimero defeats Guillermo Rigondeaux come August, then Nonito Donaire could possibly unify against him. I can't wait. I can't wait to see how it pans out, and these champions fighting one another. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. Inoue should be active here in the next few weeks as well, so we'll get to see him in action, see how the monster looks. Congratulations to Nonito Donaire. What an amazing showing he had this past Saturday night. And overall, the card was super entertaining. So with that, we move over to Las Vegas, Nevada. And that was the big main event to be headlined by Devin Haney versus Jorge Linares. The DAZN event that was taking place there. And it was just it was a great atmosphere. The fact that the crowds are starting to get back into Las Vegas, the fact that they're starting to have attendance, it's just awesome. Las Vegas is returning back to normalcy, at least a certain level of normalcy, and it's great because Las Vegas has become the mecca of boxing, which New York was once. Las Vegas is it now. The event, there was pretty good fights leading up to the main event. One of them that had a questionable stoppage was the Chantel Cameron. Chantel Cameron stays undefeated, moves on to a 14-0, stays with the unblemished record, moves on to a 14-0 record, retains her WBC super lightweight title by beating Melissa Hernandez. It was a one-sided fight from the onset. From the opening bell, Chantel Cameron sets her pace and was basically heading to a one-sided fight. She did drop Hernandez in round 4, but Hernandez kept coming forward. Tough, very experienced, not a lot of volume from Melissa Hernandez's side, but she was still in there. She was still fighting. The referee began to seem after that knockdown in round 4 like he wanted to interject, like he wanted to stop the fight, and sure enough, he does. In round 5, he ends up stepping in on what was a weak punch, at least not a stopping type punch. It was a good punch, good solid punch to the mouth by Chantel Cameron, but it wasn't anything that put Melissa Hernandez in danger. Her hands were a little bit down. The punch landed flush on her mouth, but it wasn't anything that wobbled Melissa Hernandez or almost dropped her, or she lost consciousness, anything like that. It wasn't a knockout punch. It wasn't a knockdown punch at that. It was just a solid punch, and maybe she was about to start setting a succession of punches to follow that lead right jab that Chantel Cameron landed. But the referee stepped in. The referee steps in as soon as that punch hits Melissa Hernandez in the mouth. Referee steps in, waves it off, and the crowd goes nuts, begins booing the referee. Chantel Cameron retains her title. This is her debut in the U.S. Good showing by her. I mean, regardless of the crowd's reaction, the crowd was not booing Chantel Cameron. It was a one-sided fight. It's just a matter of maybe 1 or 2 more rounds, and I think Chantel Cameron would have gotten Melissa Hernandez out of there, or maybe the stoppage would have been deemed. But the referee had to let him go. Melissa Hernandez was still conscious enough, was still fighting, was still defending herself, and give her the respect as well. She's a veteran of the sport. She's a former champion herself. Give her the respect as well. Let her fight. Let her fight. One punch will change the whole thing. One succession of punches and Melissa Hernandez could have switched momentum to her favor. Who knows if it would have happened, but let them fight. Let them figure it out. Don't step in on a weak punch like that. And that's what the crowd was booing. A lot of misconception that the crowd was booing Chantel Cameron. They weren't. Chantel Cameron debuted. This is her first fight in the U.S. across from the pond, and she debuted magnificently. She had a great showing. She represented herself well. She carries herself well. She speaks well, and she came. She worked. She did what she was supposed to, and retains her title and continues with an unblemished record. The other fight that was complete fireworks was the son of the legend, Shane Mosley Jr. Ends up going all 10 rounds against Jason Quigley. Jason Quigley ends up getting the nod, and he ends up winning the NABO, the WBO NABO middleweight title. So a small alphabet title, but it was a good showing by both fighters. Unfortunately, Shane Mosley Jr. Loses, gets the bad end of the nod, but it was a great back and forth battle, great boxing match. Definitely Shane Mosley Jr. is no Shane Mosley, and we've seen that time and again where usually the sons of these legendary fighters don't transition to be as good as their dads or their predecessors. But Shane Mosley Jr. represents himself very well, now campaigning at middleweight, and unfortunately comes on the low end of the decision, on the bad end of the decision. Jason Quigley calls out Boo Boo Andrade at the end of the fight. Now that he has a WBO NABO title, and would like a crack at Boo Boo Andrade. So Jason Quigley, fun fighter as well. Shane Mosley Jr., fun fighter as well. Great fight, super entertaining fight, goes all 10 rounds. That was a good fireworks fight. If you didn't catch that, you could catch the highlights online, I'm sure, or even find the fight. I'm sure it'll be streamed somewhere. If you got the DAZN app and you missed it, then just I'm sure you'll be able to catch it there. Martin Ward, 130-pound fight. Martin Ward stops Azinga. Actually, Azinga Fusile is the other way around. Azinga Fusile just drops Martin Ward, just tears him up left and right. Azinga Fusile, very, very impressive. Good power. Reminds me of a Night Corte. He has good power. He's kind of a mixture of like a Zolani Tete and Ike Corte. Good power, good speed, guards the hand, lets it go whenever he needs to, the right hand that is, lets it go whenever he needs to, and sends punches and bunches when need be during those exchanges, even to lead the action or create a succession of action. He just unleashes punches in order to set a trap for the counter. It was very effective, and no matter what Ward tried to do, he was just a step behind and couldn't handle the power of Fusile. Azinga Fusile, awesome fighter. I can't wait to see. Hopefully he steps up. Ward is no bum, but Azinga Fusile needs better competition, and if anything, I would like to see Fusile against the Shakur Stevenson. I don't know much about Nakatila, who's about to face Shakur Stevenson here in the next week or so, or a couple weeks. I don't know much about Nakatila, but Azinga Fusile would be an awesome fight for Shakur Stevenson, and that would be a great step up for Fusile as well. A huge step up for Fusile at that. But he's going to give anybody problems, kind of like a Subriel Matias of this 130, so 10 pounds apart. Subriel Matias represented himself really, really good on his card, and Fusile represents himself really, really good in the 130-pound division. Just awesome. He dropped Ward in round 4 and in round 7, and then the fight is stopped at that point. We get to the main event, and the anticipation was at an all-time high. There's drama, the storyline, there was a little bit of controversy. The fight lived up to it, and for the last day or so, couple days, people continue to fight about this. People immediately jumped on board. Some people jumped on the bandwagon, pointing fingers, criticizing Devin Haney. Everything's been pretty one-sided, and kick Devin Haney while he's up, I guess, because he's not down. He didn't lose, so it was an awesome fight at that. Devin Haney comes away with the decision. There was a little bit of controversy. We'll touch base on that. There was some issues that I saw that I'll point out in case you guys didn't catch them. Devin Haney performed well. Devin Haney represented himself well. He needed to show up. He needed to perform, and he did. Jorge Linares, the legend, the veteran that he is, he showed up to fight, but he was a step behind Devin Haney, maybe even a couple steps behind Devin Haney. The speed from the onset, from the opening bell, Jorge Linares comes to the center of the ring with the high guard, looking to press the action forward, try to initiate an attack, or at least bait an attack from Devin Haney so he could try to counter, and he was just a step behind. Devin Haney met Jorge Linares in the center of the ring and immediately establishes his left jab. The left jab finding Jorge Linares' face between his guard, between his gloves, over and over and over again. Devin Haney found success, and he continued. He set the pace. He set the rhythm of the fight. He ended up imposing his style of fight over what Jorge Linares should have done. Jorge Linares, being the experienced fighter, you thought he would have switched the rhythm, but it was a fairly one-sided fight as far as scoring goes. Now, if you're watching the fight, this was a fairly one-sided, fairly easy fight to score. I don't know what the judges were watching. I have no idea what the judges were watching. But this was a fairly easy fight to score for Devin Haney. It was a one-sided showing for 9 rounds for sure 10 rounds at that, but Jorge Linares steals a 10 round. Devin Haney was a step ahead, 2 steps ahead of Jorge Linares. This is not saying that Jorge Linares was a punching bag. Jorge Linares' plan was, it almost seemed like he was looking to let Devin Haney outpunch himself, carry him to the middle rounds, and start pushing on the later rounds. Devin Haney, by round 2, round 3, starts breathing with his mouth open. And I immediately thought to myself, I was even commenting on Twitter as the fight's happening. I'm commenting that it's very odd to see Devin Haney fighting with his mouth open that early in the fight. By round 3, his mouth was fully open. He's breathing heavy, and it's a matter of nerves. It's a matter of adrenaline. I was thinking he's probably going to have an adrenaline dump because this is just the biggest fight of his career to date, the biggest name that he stepped into the ring to date with. And he composed himself. He carried a good pace, a good rhythm to the fight. The jab was masterful by Devin Haney. The speed, the jab, it was good. There was great exchanges on both behalves. Jorge Linares by no means was a punching bag. He landed some really flush left hooks to Haney's right side, right cheekbone, and he was landing some flush hooks, Linares was, over and over and over again, and just wasn't able to damage. It was either catching Devin Haney on the move or just catching Devin Haney while Linares himself was slightly off balance. Therefore, he wasn't able to generate the knockdown power and get that leverage behind his punch to be able to drop Haney, because Linares is known for having some power, but he's known for also being speedy, and he has a good level of a good mix when he mixes his styles up. He started coming alive. He had good successions, good punches, but it was far in between. And Devin Haney stayed consistent, just working, while Jorge Linares would have successions of punches, would have flashes of action, but it was far in between. He would have maybe 3 or 4 successions, if that. That may even be too much each round. But Devin Haney, for at least 2 of the 3 minutes, was consistently working each and every round for the first 10 rounds. The first 9 rounds was an easy fight for me to score. I gave every single one of the rounds, no matter how much I was pulling for Jorge Linares. It was that easy of a fight to score. You couldn't rob Devin Haney. All 9 rounds I gave to Devin Haney. That's that. By the 8th round, I thought Devin Haney, by the end of the 7th, I thought Devin Haney was starting to land some really hard punches on Jorge Linares. By the 8th, he ends up hurting Jorge Linares to the body. Jorge Linares starts looking like he's about to get knocked out, like he's about to be dropped on this fight, and it didn't happen. The experience carried him through. He was able to get a second wind, finish out the 8th round, and started having some action, some succession, or some success in the 9th round. He lands a really, really good left uppercut on Haney, in which he wobbles him instantly, and it was really quick that he wobbles him. He hits him on the button, right on the chin. Devin Haney wobbles a little bit, but gained his composure immediately, and you started seeing a little shift there. That was in the 9th round, but not enough to steal the round for Jorge Linares. Again, 9 rounds solid for Devin Haney, in my opinion. That's how I was scoring the fight. I had it 9-0 going into the 10th. The 10th round comes, Devin Haney, same thing, same pace. Jorge Linares getting a little bit more active, starting to land more punches, pushing the action a little bit more, but Devin Haney continued by pushing and establishing his jab and remaining, keeping Jorge Linares at bay because of his jab. And then he would fake the jab and land a right punch to the stomach, to the gut, and push Jorge Linares back or hold him in his tracks and continue rounding about the ring, utilizing the entirety of the ring. Good footwork through and through for Devin Haney. The last 10 seconds of the 10th round, this happened to be the first round that I give to Jorge Linares because he did enough to steal the round, in my opinion. And that was that last flurry that he threw, the last succession, as he gets the best of the exchange. Both fighters exchange in the center of the ring. Jorge Linares throws a really good combination, and the final punch was a punch down on an angle, landing flush on the button on the chin of Devin Haney, and Devin Haney does not get dropped, nearly does, but does not get dropped. The referee steps in the middle as the round ends, and Devin Haney wobbles. He got the Bambi legs, trying to walk back to the corner, and his corner is panicking because he barely made it to the corner. Jorge Linares even makes a motion as if he's leading him to his corner, like showing him which way his corner is, mocking him. And then he heads to his corner. Jorge Linares he breathed some life. He got some renewed life by having landed that succession, that combination, and came out in the 11th round looking to stop Devin Haney. That last combination by Jorge Linares was enough for me to steal the round because it was that effective, and it changed momentum. It changed momentum in the favor of Jorge Linares as we began the championship rounds in the fight. That was the first round that was clear for me to give to Jorge Linares, even though Haney was winning the majority of the round, in my opinion. So we get 9-1. Then we get into the 11th round. Jorge Linares comes out, and this is what people are complaining about, the clinching. Devin Haney gathers himself. He tries to fight Jorge Linares. As the round began, Jorge Linares lands his left hook again, shakes Devin Haney up. Devin Haney starts moving from the left to the right side of the ring, at least from the fans' perspective, right as we're watching it on screen. He moves from the left of the screen to the right of the screen, rounding about with his back near the ropes. Linares connects another combination and hurts Devin Haney again, and followed a clinch on behalf of Devin Haney, one of many to finish out that round. It was at least one of 3 or one of 4 that Haney pulled off there in the 11th round to survive the round, to gain his composure, to kill the clock, and Jorge Linares lets him off the hook. This is the experienced 19-year veteran Jorge Linares, and he has him on the brink of dropping him, maybe even stopping Devin Haney and getting that belt around his waist once again. The experience on those clinches. I mean, of course, Jorge Linares was tired. Jorge Linares was getting out-punched, was getting hit the majority of the night. His experience, you would think that would carry him, and maybe he saw it, and he saw these clinches, but the uppercuts weren't there. The quick rabbit punch that he could have landed to the forehead or to the button just to stop Devin Haney in his tracks so he could follow up with a combination and stop Devin Haney or possibly drop him. It wasn't there. He clearly allowed Devin Haney to hug him. Devin Haney lunging forward, grabbing, even taking some hits, exposing his head, taking hits while he's walking forward towards Jorge Linares, tying up his arms and hugging him. The referee continues to break him apart and giving him warnings and talking to him, and the clock keeps running, and the 11th round got away from Jorge Linares, and Linares fails to stop. This momentum shift definitely gave a new breath of life to the fight. In what was a one-sided fight, the crowd was now on its feet and fully engaged, looking to see an upset. And the crowd begins to boo every time that Devin Haney is clinching. In the 12th round, at one point, he drops his head and fully lunges forward, almost in a running motion, and just clinches onto, grabs. It was a run and hug, I believe is what they were calling it, a run and hug. He drops his head and full on lunges forward toward Jorge Linares, ties him up, and it continued. And he did enough. And then he begins to compose himself. Jorge Linares lets him off the hook. The fight ends and people begin to boo. I don't know what they wanted. But there's a lot of stuff that happened there at the end of the fight. And people immediately begin to, it was a mixed reaction when Devin Haney's announced as the winner. It was a mixed reaction by the crowd as people are cheering. Another portion of the crowd is booing. Obviously, you have Jorge Linares fans, maybe some Devin Haney fans that switched, that weren't happy with his antics of grabbing on for dear life as they're saying it. To me, Devin Haney was winning a one-sided decision as far as points was concerned. As far as the scorecards were concerned, Devin Haney put on a great performance, awesome jab, great speed, great footwork, great ring IQ for at least 10 rounds of the 12 rounds. It was an easy fight to score. Jorge Linares made it a fight into the late rounds, and maybe this, if he would have been able to land these punches earlier in the fight, he would have had some more rounds to work with, and quite possibly he may have stopped Devin Haney. But Devin Haney did what he was supposed to do. He clinched, he grabbed. They're accusing him of holding. Other boxers immediately came on. There's a boxer, Teofimo Lopez comes on, right? He's recording. There's another boxer that I only recognize as Rolly. I don't know him too well, but I know he spars with a lot of these boxers, with Gervonta and Devin Haney and Teofimo, Ryan Garcia, and he's very vocal. Expresses his opinions a lot. He talks down about a lot of fighters. He's very mouthy, but very good fighter, very quick, very speedy fighter. I know him as Rolly. That's the name that pops in his nickname's what pops in my head. He records a video, just immediately just jumps all over Devin Haney, calling him this, calling him that, calling him names, and saying how Devin Haney was holding for dear life. Teofimo Lopez again jumps on. Ryan Garcia appears out of the woodwork and begins criticizing Devin Haney, saying that if he would have landed that punch on Devin Haney, he would have dropped Devin Haney and knocked him out. Luke Campbell starts tweeting messages to Devin Haney. I mean, the hate just started pouring into Devin Haney, or Devin Haney's way, and I don't understand why. He did what he was supposed to. He won. And don't forget this, while people are pointing fingers to Devin Haney, there should also be equal blame on falling on Jorge Linares. Yes, he's a veteran, but don't give him a pass. Jorge Linares is a veteran. His experience should have been able to be enough to close. He should have known how to close this show and get his hand raised at the end of the fight, and he didn't. He wasn't able to do it, whether he was tired, whether his reflexes weren't there, whether his instinct wasn't there. He was seeing Devin Haney coming in for the clinch. He knew Devin Haney was going to start clinching, especially with that much experience on your side. You know what the boxers tend to do. Whenever they're pure boxers, they tend to reach and grab and clinch to kill the clock. And obviously to keep you from landing that knockout punch. Devin Haney did what he could. Devin Haney started sticking and moving, sticking and grabbing, landing one or two punches, one jab, two punches here and there, and then grabbing. I mean, this is the style that allowed Devin Haney to finish the fight, and ensure that he walked out with the title. It's not the most fan-friendly style. It's not the greatest thing to see, because you want to see these guys just fight it out. But in the end, these are the guys that are in the ring. He did what he had to do to walk out with his title. And regardless of what people's opinions are, that it was ugly, that it sucked that he won that way, who cares? He did enough. He did enough to have won that. So that was a little bit of the controversy after the fight. Something else that I noticed in this fight. Listen, I'm not a professional judge, but it was a fairly easy fight to score. I don't understand what the hell these judges were watching. These judges ended up scoring. Patricia Morse Jarman gives Devin Haney a 4-round fight, 116 to 112. She saw it fairly close. I don't have the official scorecards in front of me, but I was able to jot down the scores as they read them out. Patricia Morse Jarman, 116-112 for Devin Haney. Meaning Jorge Linares was a lot more in this fight than than what we were seeing. It was a fairly one-sided fight. Yes, Jorge Linares had a lot of good moments in the fight, a lot of good combinations that he landed, a lot of clean punches, but they were far in between from the consistency that Devin Haney set, from the pace that Devin Haney was fighting at. And we'll go into the punch stats here in a second. Dave Moretti has it even closer than Jarman. He had it for Devin Haney 115-112. Dave Moretti. Steve Weisfeld, same as Jarman, 116-112 unanimous decision for Devin Haney. All three judges had this fight a lot closer than what we were actually witnessing. It's crazy to me. I don't know what, these are professional judges that have done this for years and years and years and years, and I just don't know what it is that they were watching. It bothers me when you see scores like this, because we consistently have these letdowns, these upsets that the judges end up taking away from the fights, taking away from what the fighters are doing in the ring. I had it 118-110, giving round 10 and round 11 to Linares and round 12 to Devin Haney. Once again, 118-110, a big difference. I know there was several publications and several sites that I saw that had it the same at 118-110, but these judges saw it completely different, and you may very well have had an upset, and then people would have been jumping all over Jorge Linares because they would have been claiming robbery or this or that. It is what it is. The way that it played out, that was one of the controversies, one of the issues that I had with the fight, the way that the judges saw it. The other thing that bothered me about the fight was Russell Mora, the referee. The referee's job is there to enforce the rules of the sport, to enforce the rules of boxing, and to ensure that the match is fair and balanced. He's not there to decide who the winner is. He's not there to disrupt the flow of the fight. He's not there to become a star. He's simply there to enforce the rules and ensure that the fight is being fought fair and balanced by both parties. Russell Mora continues to break him up. Russell Mora continues to interject, continues to give him warnings, but never did anything. And he continued to warn Jorge Linares for punching in the back of the head when it also happened on Devin Haney's end. When Devin Haney would break away from a clinch or would clinch and punch, there was often times where Devin Haney's right hand, if you go back and watch, even if you watch the highlights, you'll catch it. He did it over and over. Devin Haney landing inside punches, and his elbow would often end up right on the jaw of Jorge Linares, and then step away. But Russell Mora would give the warnings to Jorge Linares over. I don't know how many warnings he gave to Jorge Linares. And it's almost like he noticed that Jorge Linares was losing points, so he refused to take an additional point from Jorge Linares and just continue to warn him. If he would have done this, yes, it would have affected by points. Jorge Linares was already trailing on points, but the referee could see what he could see, but he had no idea how the judges on the sides or on the outside are scoring the fight. But he's very experienced himself, Russell Mora, that is. So he knows if Jorge Linares, which one of the two fighters is down on points, or at least have an idea as to which one of the fighters is down on points. So he chose not to further inflict damage to Jorge Linares. That's basically how it came across. If he would have taken a point from Jorge Linares at some point during these warnings, they would have taken Russell Mora a lot more serious down the stretch. And then he would have actually been able to take a point away from the excessive grabbing or clinching that people are now complaining about that Devin Haney did. But the referee didn't do it. The referee failed to do it. So he just continues to talk to him, continues to break him up and talk to him and give him lectures. And then meanwhile, the clock is running, and then let him fight. And then Devin Haney will come in for another grab or another clinch. And then here goes Russell Mora again. How come nobody's talking about that? Because that ended up interrupting the flow of the fight. The clinches were interrupting the flow of the fight. But Devin Haney was smart enough to get away with what he could. He exploited a loophole, knowing that the referee was not going to do anything about it, and he finished the fight. He did what he had to do to keep that title around his waist, and that's it. So it sucks whether you're a fan of Devin Haney, whether you're not, you can't knock him. You can't knock him for having fought. He fought a great fight. He was in trouble down the stretch, and he found a way to survive, to gain his composure, and finish out the fight. It was almost reminiscent of years back, 2010, I believe, when Floyd Mayweather fought Shane Mosley, and I believe it was Kenny Bayless, of course, Kenny Bayless, famous for refereeing Mayweather fights, and Shane Mosley catches Mayweather flush, and I think it was round 4 where he catches him, and Mayweather just clinches on for dear life with both hands grabbing onto Shane Mosley's right arm so he wouldn't get away and free up that arm and punch him again. He's clinching as his legs are wobbly. He's walking, Mosley trying to pull back, and Mayweather grabbing onto him, and the referee does nothing but just watch it. It is, I mean, whatever. Regardless of how angry you get at these things, don't take the blame on the boxer, because there's a third man in the ring, and they're supposed to be enforcing this, and they're supposed to be making sure that the fight is fair and balanced and enforcing these rules. And if they're giving warnings to professionals, you give 1 warning, maybe 2 warnings if you want to play the 3-strike rule, but then you start taking points away. And you'll change the flow of the fight that way, because you're letting them know that you're not going to mess around with that you're not going to play around with this exploiting loopholes. You start taking points away, and you end up interjecting the flow of the fight by letting them know that you're not going to be doing this and you're not going to be doing that. And no cheap shots, no rabbit punching, no excessive clinching or grabbing. No, but you got to set the precedents. You got to set your foot down and enforce the rules. Enforce the rules. Do your job. But nobody's jumping on that. Nobody caught that. Everything is going, all the blame, the fingers are being pointed towards Devin Haney, but what about pointing them towards Jorge Linares, who's a 19-year veteran? Don't forget that when Jorge Linares was starting to turn pro, and I personally was pulling for Jorge Linares just because I wanted to see history on this side as well as in California with Nonito, becoming the oldest Bantamweight champion, a 20-year veteran in Nonito Donaire, a 19-year veteran in Jorge Linares, and this is what I was pulling for. I wanted to see history. I wanted to see Jorge Linares in that Cinderella story get a title once again. But nobody's pointing the finger at him as a 19-year veteran. When he started his career, Devin Haney was 4 years old. This is a 19-year veteran who has seen it all, has been in there with great names, great experience. He recognizes these moments, and he failed to close the show. So all these people pointing the finger at Devin Haney, listen, it is what it is. He is the WBC champion. All this drama, we cleared it up on the preview episode. The WBC created this issue between Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney, and Mauricio Suleiman is recognizing both men as the WBC, as representatives of the WBC in that 135-pound division. Devin Haney is not a paper champ, is not a Gmail champ. This is a second defense. He's a 135-pound champ with the WBC title around his waist. He is legit. Whether you like it or not, he is legit. Congratulations to Devin Haney, because he is the WBC champion for the 135-pound division. Teofimo Lopez is the franchise champion, carrying the franchise version of the WBC 135-pound title. He's going to be fighting in a few weeks' time against George Kambosos. And mark my words, we'll do an episode as that fight gets closer and we're able to break that fight down. But mark my words, I'm going to say it here. If Kambosos dethrones Teofimo Lopez, don't be surprised if the WBC ends up pulling that franchise status and don't transfer it over to George Kambosos. Why would they do that, you ask? If the WBC, they transferred it from Lomachenko to Teofimo, but they won't do it for George Kambosos. I guarantee you that they're going to pull that franchise status, pull the carpet from under his feet. Kambosos will now have 3 of the 4 titles, and this would elevate a unification for the undisputed championship between Devin Haney and George Kambosos. If Teofimo wins, the franchise status stays there. Now they got themselves that big money fight, and the reason why they created the franchise status in Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez. That would be the next match. But don't be surprised if Kambosos upsets Teofimo Lopez, and he has a very good chance of doing so. Fast hands, undefeated guy, good boxer at that, good foundation in George Kambosos. If he beats Teofimo Lopez, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the WBC removes that franchise status, creating what we just had last week with Josh Taylor and Ramirez, 3 titles against 1, and a big unification bout between Kambosos and Haney. Why do I say this? Because we just saw it with another sanctioning body. The sanctioning bodies are out of control. The sanctioning body with the WBA, they elevated Yordenis Ugas as their super champion in the welterweight division, and now it looks like they're going to pull that carpet from under his feet, and the champion that they had deemed champion in Reese's and Manny Pacquiao, they ended up, and that's because they named Manny Pacquiao champion in Reese's, who was inactive for nearly 2 years, or has been inactive for nearly 2 years, they ended up elevating Yordenis Ugas as their representative of choice and deemed them the super champion for the WBA. Errol Spence, supposed to fight, that was the fight that he was after, and he told me himself when I interviewed him back in March, and you could catch that interview on YouTube. I have it on the catalog, on the YouTube catalog. You could check that out as I talked to Errol Spence live, and he ends up breaking the news there. This is back in March, and he's after Yordenis Ugas, trying to get that 3rd title, and he tells me himself, if I get that 3rd title, this fight, the stakes are going to raise between me and Crawford, and then I'll go after Terence Crawford's title. That would be the 4th one that I need. And that was Errol Spence's plan. But of course, he's going for history. The legendary Manny Pacquiao, who Terence Crawford was after, who supposedly Ryan Garcia was after. Everybody wants to have that name on the resume. Errol Spence has landed that fight, and now the WBC, well, hey, it's a unification bout. Now, it was going to be a fight for the title, for Errol Spence's 2 titles. Well, now they're going to make it a unification bout. Sweep the carpet from under Yordenis Ugas' feet, take the super champion status away from him, and relist Manny Pacquiao as their champion. Rather than champion in Reese's, they'll reinstate him as the WBA champion, and now they have themselves a unification bout and a dog in the race. That's crazy, right? But that's the sanctioning bodies are doing whatever the hell they want. So mark my words, I'm calling it out here. Teofimo Lopez, of course, I'm a big fan of his. That's going to be a firefight between him and George Kambosos. And I'm just putting it out there right now because I see this happening. Sanctioning bodies are doing whatever the hell they want. But we know as the fans who the main fighters are in each division. And in the lightweight division, the 135-pound division, there's 5 people to reckon right now, and that's going to be Teofimo, that's Devin Haney, that's Gervonta Davis, who doesn't have a title in that division, but people still hold him in high regard in 135-pound. He's fighting at 140 against Mario Barrios, yet they hold him as a top of the 135. Ryan Garcia is another dog there. I mean, listen, it is what it is. It is what it is. Just enjoy it while we have these fighters here and they're fighting amongst one another. I'm happy that Devin Haney called out Lomachenko and Linares and ends up landing one of those 2 names rather than somebody else who's unknown. He's fighting the big names. Now Javier Fortuna has a fight coming up with Jojo Diaz. That's going to be pretty awesome in itself. But Devin Haney did his job. This is the biggest resume to date in his career. He moves on to 26-0, retains his title. Now he's got Gamboa and Linares in back-to-back fights, and now he's going to wait to see what happens with Teofimo Lopez and George Kambosos. Or he may very well land another name, maybe Ryan Garcia, who already came out of the woodwork and began talking smack about Devin Haney. Or, I don't know, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. The winners are you. The winners are all of us. The boxing fans. This was a long episode, guys. Sorry for holding you up. Hopefully, I kept you company while you're driving to or from work, or while you're out there running, working out, what have you. Hopefully I was able to keep you company here, as this was one of the longer episodes that I have done, but there was a lot to cover. A lot of action happened this past Saturday. Congratulations, Nonito Donaire, the oldest bantamweight champion in boxing history at 38, beating Jerry Peñalosa's record, who accomplished this feat at the age of 36. Nonito Donaire now the oldest bantamweight champion and the WBC's bantamweight champion. WBC also in women's. Chantel Cameron also defended her WBC title, and WBC in full action this past weekend. And then Devin Haney retains the WBC version of the lightweight championship against Jorge Linares. Awesome fight. I don't know what you think. Hopefully I did justice by you and did right by breaking down these fights and recapping these fights as I saw it. I call it like I see it, guys, and I'm not gonna BS you. Whether you like it or not, shoot me a comment. Let me know what you think. Find me on Twitter. Find me on Instagram. You can send me a DM. I have the catalog up on Instagram, and you'll link over to Buzzsprout. You could find me on any of the major podcast platforms: Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, you name it. I'll be available on all of them. And you could find the catalog on YouTube as well, including a couple interviews that I left up there with Jamel Herring and one with Errol Spence from back in March at the Virgil Ortiz Maurice Hooker event that I attended to. Much more stuff coming your way, guys. Thank you guys again for tuning in. This was episode 97, I believe. We're getting real close to 100. So episode 97, this is a recap episode of Oubaali, Donaire, and Haney Linares. Thank you guys again. Have yourselves a great day or good night, depending on when you're listening to this. And I'll see you guys on the next episode. Talk to you all soon. Take care of yourselves.